Hello, everybody. It's Linda Lippin here from Linda Lippin Pilates, the Pilates Teacher Mastermind, and Strong Bones Pilates. And I actually haven't been on live for an interview in a while because life happens. And I am super excited, however, about today's interview, particularly. Okay. Those of you who have known me for a long time know that Linda has always been a big fan of the psychedelics. Always, always. Because I kind of love my brain and I like sometimes to play in my brain and with my brain. So there that is. But I've been very, very interested lately in all of the news and all of the buzz that's coming about now as states here in the US and I believe some in Canada are starting to loosen up the regulation of psychedelic drugs like ketamine and psilocybin, at least for psychological benefits. And it turns out that you don't actually need tons of it. You need very little of it, hence the term microdosing. So this is not the sitting down and eating an eighth of shrooms like you did in college and hoping for the best. Okay. This is actually guided therapeutic use of psychedelics. So my guest today is my friend Alison Crothwait. And you're in Canada, yes?
That's correct.
Allison. Now, Allison started out in her career as a trader and researcher in capital markets. And if that wouldn't put you into a stressful situation, I don't know what else would. So
I
after
can't argue.
15, right? So after 15 years of that, Allison left that, became a psychotherapist, and spent almost a decade in private practice. But as she went through her own healing journey, she realized it was beyond psychotherapy. And in 2020, she stepped away from the psychotherapy practice full time to become a guide. So now she holds space for full being transformation and is a big advocate for psychedelic healing facilitated with proper preparation, integration, and integrity. Um, I have known a number of people who have used guides who did not practice in that way and had some really ill effects from using psychedelics and not being guided properly and ended up, maybe a little worse off than they were at the beginning. But that does not ever need to happen if you're doing things properly and you're guided correctly. So, welcome, Allison. I'm really, really excited for this conversation today, and I think many of my followers are as well. How are
Thank you,
you?
Linda.
Um, so, one question that I have that I actually think we haven't answered yet in our own personal conversations is what was the shift that brought you out of traditional psychotherapy and into using psychedelics for transformation?
Sure. It's a really good question. So, I wanted to have a baby very much. And I had a lot of trouble having a baby. And I lost my son at 20 weeks.
Mm,
And I was broken. And that's grief for anyone to lose a child and a wanted child. But the way that I grieved, all of my past traumas came up. Like I did not have the resilience to grieve with any type of creativity or positivity. I went down a black hole. And so the self-esteem that I built was on two shaky foundations to withstand this feeling that I wasn't going to get to have children and I lost this baby that I loved. And psychotherapy, I mean, it is a brilliant modality. I have all the love in the world for it. I don't talk badly about talk therapy, But like every modality, it does have its limits. And I know what happened. I know what happened with my mother. I know what, like, I know, and I can cry and I can rage. And I was still in a black hole. And I really just had a choice. Am I going to go forward and create something new and step into the unknown? Or am I going to be bitter and hopeless my whole life and believe that I'm less than because I'm not a mother of a living child? And I felt called to ayahuasca and I took the leap. And that was the change point for me. That ayahuasca immediately met me where I was. I wanted to have a baby, and ayahuasca was like, hey, lady. it was amazing. Ayahuasca was like, just remember you're a sexual being, by the way. And I'd forgotten. And I started this whole path of self-worth, inhabiting my sexuality apart from being a mom. And it changed everything. And that's the short version, but it changed everything.
Yeah. What made you take that leap or consider that path?
I had a colleague who'd been doing it for a couple years. And this is something I really believe about the psychedelics. I heard him talk about it. I knew it was for me. Like, just in my body, I knew it was my path. It was something I was supposed to do. It just felt right. So while it was totally scary and totally intense, there was an inner knowing to it. And I think that's an important piece of these medicines. Like, they call us and people will say to me, it's not for me. And I'm like, then it's not for you. Like, we have to know, right?
Yes, for sure. Now, in terms of the types of psychedelics that people are using or that you would use with your patients, you mentioned ayahuasca, and I know a number of people who have either traveled down south of the border to do an ayahuasca ceremony, or have brought shamans up into the US to do ayahuasca ceremonies here.
Mhm.
I also know a number of people who microdose with ketamine and a number of people who microdose with psilocybin. Is there a difference? How would people choose? Do you handle all of them?
So absolutely. There's so many things here. I only work with well, I shouldn't say only, but of the ones you mentioned, I work with psilocybin. It is a very gentle, relatively gentle medicine. You have a lot of control over dose. Like you said, you can microdose or you can macrodose. People rarely throw up, rarely. It's quite relatively easy on the body. It's locally grown, it's sustainable. There's so many good reasons. Ayahuasca, I don't serve because I'm not trained in the shamanic tradition. And I really honor that tradition. And I think, some of the shamans I've worked with say, just come, even you're not ready yet, they'll say to people, to take the medicine. Just come and be in the maloka, in the environment. Like, that is the healing. One shaman I spoke to said 75% of the healing is being in the environment. So
Oh,
it's a
interesting.
whole tradition. The songs, the chants interact with the music. It's profound. I mean, it changed my life. I did many, many ceremonies. And it's very intense, and it's not our Western understanding of the world. And you have to when you do it, you have to put it together. Then you come home and you're like, well, then what do I do? And so the way I'm approaching it is saying, well, we don't have to go so far. We can do it from a Western psychological perspective. That's why I work with the psilocybin. And we can dose it at a level that's right for you. And we can integrate it in a way that's familiar to you. And you can do the same work essentially as you can do with an ayahuasca.
Oh, interesting. Now, in your experience, how is it that the psychedelic kind of opens things up and allows for that greater understanding and transformation? Like, obviously, I've taken plenty, but don't necessarily and have researched plenty because I'm not the kind of person who ingests things that I haven't researched at all. That's like
Mhm.
that's not for me. Um, but even, going back and reading Timothy Leary and reading Ram Dass and reading, all of there's a huge body of literature, including the electric Kool-Aid acid test from Ken Kesey that talks about the tradition and the experience. I did a number of Grateful Dead tours. I've been
You're awesome.
I've been kind of within this milieu for quite a large part of my life. And obviously, I'm still here and still perfectly coherent and fine. So, what is it that allows for that kind of opening, especially when done under, controlled supervision?
So I'm going to talk from a scientific perspective
Hmm.
for a moment because I think that helps people. We're all kind of familiar with Pavlov's dog.
Hmm.
The bell rings, the dog drools because the dog has associated the bell with being fed. Conditioned response. Well, we are conditioned machines. Like everywhere we are, we have patterns. Our partner says this, we get pissed, we're abandoned, we're the worst. We smell the spring, we feel happy. We sit down to work, we have our feelings. The notifications on our phones, they give us various feelings. We are just pattern machines and we don't realize it necessarily. And so then we try to change them and we try to shift habits. It's friggin' hard. We can do it, but it's hard because there's a lot of feeling there and a lot of resistance in the neural network that
Right, and that's when we get into things like willpower and just things like I always say, what's willpower is forcing yourself to do shit you hate.
well, exactly.
That's
And
what willpower is, and that's
who
not
wants to
fun.
do that?
Like, who wants that?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And so what these medicines do is they actually open the neuroplasticity. So they make it so that these conditioned responses are not so fixed. So say when you're microdosing, which to be clear, you're not high. If you've got your dose right, you don't even know you're on anything. But you're having that fight with your partner, and the person says the thing that usually pisses you off. And you may feel a little pissed off, but you also see that they're trying. Like you can see more because you're not so fixed. And you can feel more. Like you put your kid to bed and you read the story and you feel their desire for connection with you in a different way and you can open your heart to them. Like different things can happen in moments without you kind of pushing and muscling your way through.
That's very interesting.
Yes. And this is why
That's
it's important to have intention and to have support in the practices because open is not necessarily good. What if you take the mushrooms and then go watch like really scary movies? Like I wouldn't do that.
right.
So you want to be channeling the energy in the direction of releasing what you need to release and connecting to what you want to connect.
Yes, I remember when I was an undergrad. The one I actually came in with AP biology credits, so I didn't have to take a whole lot of science. I was a philosophy major, so and ended up, going to graduate school for that. And so the science course, so I took two science courses, both psych courses, which were considered, science courses at my school. And I took psychology of consciousness and I took psychology of women. And what was very interesting to me is especially, my adopted mother was bipolar. And watching kind of her journey, but also how hard the medications were, on her system was very interesting to me. And then learning about how the chemical imbalances were actually kind of salt imbalances in the
Mhm.
space in our synapses, in the space between the nerve cells that then allowed misfiring then leading to hallucinations, leading to paranoia, leading to depression, leading to mania, leading to whatever that leads to in that person's brain. And I thought, that's really interesting, right? That's why lithium works, right? For bipolar generally, is it replaces the actual salt that's out of balance in your nervous system. So that made perfect sense to me. But this professor also had us, do meditation. He had studied with Richard Alpert and Leary and all of those folks. And we talked a lot about what psychedelics actually did in your brain, specifically psilocybin, in terms of reconnecting pathways, like you said, opening pathways, but also reconnecting or connecting pathways for the short term that aren't always available. So suddenly that idea of if you're macrodosing and you're seeing music and you're hearing the grass move and you are having these experiences that we don't normally have, and part of you is thinking it's just because I'm high. It's actually the chemical makeup of that mushroom that is allowing your synapses to open and fire in different ways so that you have different experiences of the world. And I was like, that. Of course, that reinforced, my whole experience. I was like, yeah, that.
That
That's awesome. So
it's so awesome.
right. And the fact that you can now have that experience over a slower course of time without having to be really high.
That's right. It makes it accessible for everybody.
It really does. Now, are there side effects other than the good things?
I mean, getting the dose right, you have to be aware that if, especially for women, the doses start sometimes a little high. So if you're sensitive or smaller, you might have a day when you're a bit woozy. I often start my people on like half a capsule.
Hmm.
So you have to be aware of that. And the other thing I would say is, you're embarking on a healing journey. So the, you want to go here, you're here. What's keeping you from here? Well, there's some things to see and feel and understand that you may not want to see, feel, and understand. So it's not always a pleasant experience. There are, the research is very good. We don't know a lot about the long-term effects, but at the small doses, it's a very, very safe thing to do. But it's also an intense life choice to say, yeah, I want to see more than I can see, because we can see so little in our day-to-day life. And it takes courage to go, oh, I see.
Right. And most of the medications that are out on the market right now, right, that are still the old school benzos
Yep.
and all of those, your Valiums and your Xanaxes and all your things ending in Pam. uh, well, it's true.
It is true.
All of these actually serve to numb, which
That's
is
right.
very interesting.
It
They
is, isn't
don't
it?
get rid of your anxiety. They just numb you and kind of tamp you down a little bit.
That's right.
Plus, even at low doses, like, I've had people say, well, I'm only taking 2 milligrams of Valium, so it's not a big deal. And I'm like, well, but if you're taking it 2 or 3 times a day, I have a feeling when you stop taking it, you're going to have a really bad come down from that. And of course, it does turn out that the detox from benzos is horrible.
Horrible.
It's
It's horrible.
absolutely horrible. So, we come from a Western medical model where they basically create drugs to just get rid of our symptoms,
That's right.
to just stop the symptoms, which is what most of us do and deal with because that's what our doctors will hand us.
That's right.
And then suddenly you want to make a change or make a shift, and you're having withdrawal symptoms and you're having headaches and you're irritable and you
Right.
can't sleep and you can't. It strikes me that the work with microdosing psychedelics for transformation is actually more of an I can.
Absolutely. The way I like to think of it is if you break your elbow, just imagine if all they did was give you painkillers.
Right. Right.
It's madness, right? We know we need to fix the bone. I don't have anything wrong with a certain amount of the Western medicines for regulation to help us function during difficult time, but don't tell me that the pain is not important. The pain is telling us something. Something's not quite right, and we have to address what's not quite right in a person. What doesn't feel right to them? Why are they anxious? Why are they flat? Why are they not wanting to get out of bed? There's good reasons. I have yet to meet a human being who doesn't make sense. They don't think they make sense. They all make sense. When they tell me their lives, I'm like, well, no wonder you're anxious. No wonder you're sad. There's a lot to be sad
Right.
about here. But we make sadness a problem. We make worry a problem instead of integrating it in and saying, okay, so feel it, be supported in it. Don't fight it. It's part of being human. The advertisements don't like us to know this, but it is a part of being human to have feelings and challenges. And then you can have anything you want. You can heal and grow and integrate your challenges and become more of yourself as a result of them.
Right. So you just become more of you instead of tamping
Absolutely.
everything down and feeling like, there's somehow something wrong with you. So
That's
you
right.
need to be less.
Exactly.
And we go through a lot of this in Pilates in the studio, right? Because we have so many clients who come to us who are in physical pain, who have been, who have injuries, who have just had an osteoporosis diagnosis or an MS or or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
And they're trying to kind of work through their bodies and work through their pain while they're still dealing with all of this psychological stuff. And in the past, I've actually had clients who I had to gently escort out of the Pilates studio because they were literally so high on pain medication that I feared for them on the equipment and actually feared for them driving to the studio. Yeah, where they were just so high on pain meds and so tamped down. And, you know, people need connection.
Yes.
People need to get within themselves, to strengthen their bodies, to get healthier. And I think we forget or just blow off the kind of, non prescription things. And we're just like,
Absolutely.
oh, it's for hippies or it's for kids or it was those deadheads or, or whatever that looks like, instead of realizing that these plants and these mushrooms and these flowers, whatever you're using, have been around forever.
Thousands of years. Forever.
And people have
Forever.
been using them forever. And animals use
Yes.
them all the time,
Exactly. They're right
all
here
the
for
time.
us.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I was reading an article about deer and how deer will specifically forage for specific plants and mushrooms during times when they just want to chill out and have fun. And they know exactly where they are and what they look like and they eat them and they have a good time and they go about their lives.
Amazing.
This is deer.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's am
So
mm,
it strikes me that opening up and wanting that is it's an animal thing. It's also a human thing. It's a person, it's somebody with a brain and a
yes.
nervous system that has been through stuff, which is, I think, 99% or 100% of the human beings walking around. No matter,
Well,
how much we want to think that we're different or or we're better than or we're other than. And what's also interesting to me is that for a long time, I mean, it wasn't until maybe the last 10, 15 years that you see references to Pilates in, pop culture and in TV and,
Sure.
in movies. Before, nobody knew what it was. It was this like weird thing. We used this weird equipment. We had these weird exercises. Nobody really understood what it was, but people kept going. And you know why? Because they felt and functioned better and had a good time. And that's
Right.
why people kept coming. And it strikes me that the work that you do with guiding people through their brains and through opening up those neural pathways for transformation is really relevantly similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you're dealing with also that same kind of, stigma in a way of,
Totally.
but, do people really do this? And this isn't just for druggies and
I don't take
and
substances. That's one of my favorites. I don't even like Tylenol. And I say, well, do you drink chamomile tea? Like, this is not a drug.
do you drink coffee?
Well, that's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is herbal medicine and it's been made a drug. There's a whole history to that. But yeah, very
Oh
natural.
yeah. Yeah. Um, and the fact is too that a lot of folks trust herbal medicines, made in China, sold on Amazon,
Right.
that are probably worse. And I'm not talking about traditional Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
again, guided prescribed herbal things. I am just talking about the glut of stuff that you don't
Oh,
even know what's in it. The
no
FDA
idea.
has not approved it. Um, and we're told, like, I mean, every day there's some like news, story or some clickbait article of, oh, try this in your tea and you'll feel better, or take this herb every day. If I have one more person ask me about kind of herbal supplements for weight loss,
Oh, I
I'm
know.
like, do you really think that if there was a pill that had no side effects and really worked, that we wouldn't all be taking it?
Right. Right.
Like everybody would just take it.
And the
And the
microdosing
fact that we're
response to,
not is because there's nothing out there that really works.
well, yeah, exactly. And my question would be, what are you actually trying to achieve? What is it that you want? And get down to the heart of that piece around self worth. And then you'll be able to shift whatever habits you need to shift for your health and strip away all the conditioning of what we've been told we should look like. Oh, you know,
Right.
there's a lot of work to be done there.
Just a lot. Just a lot. Um, so Allison, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do? And do you work with folks from the US as well as Canada?
I do. I have an online 8-week microdosing program where I support you in sourcing, preparation, dosing, going on your healing journey, and returning. Full support beginning to end. And you can find me on Instagram, Alison Crothswait, LinkedIn, and I have a website called expandwithmicrodosing.com, where if you enter your email, you'll get a talk and I'll tell you more about how I see microdosing and you'll have a way to connect with me there. So don't hesitate to hit me up. I love to chat about microdosing.
She does. It's true.
You do.
Because we've done it.
Super fun. It's always a good conversation. Always.
It is a good conversation. Like opening up the brain, opening up the mind, opening up the neural pathways. There is nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing. And the
And we need it.
more we learn, I mean, if Pilates teachers or personal trainers are watching this, the more we learn about neuroplasticity, the more we learn about how even changing movements and changing how you do movements and changing your body position and your breathing and how you're feeling when you're exercising changes the effects of the exercise on your body.
This
Changes
is where
how
our
your
work
body
comes
handles
together.
the exercise, and this is where yes, because all of this work comes to all of it comes together
Totally.
sooner or later.
Yeah.
So, if you are experiencing any kind of depression or emotional agitation or feeling not enough in your, Pilates teaching in your practice, for the teachers who are
100%.
watching this, I really, really do recommend looking into microdosing for transformation. It's something that can easily fit into your life and your schedule, because you don't have to take time off to like have a day to just be stoned
Totally.
or do that. You can go about your life and do the microdosing with a guide. And yes, Elaine, you're right. The more we learn, the better it is for everybody,
That's right.
both physically and mentally. And I also recommend that if you are Pilates teacher, yoga teacher, fitness coach, and you're working with clients who are struggling, or you're working with clients who are tamping themselves down with pain medication, with muscle relaxers, with benzos and antidepressants, this is something natural. This is something safe, and this is something they could look into.
Yeah.
And I
What I
think,
see
they'd
happening
help.
in it can be a huge help. What I see happening in 8 weeks, having been a psychotherapist for almost a decade, I am astounded at what I see people able to do in 8 weeks with the help of the medicine. I'm like, that would take 20 years in a normal psychotherapy. It's really amazing. So I do encourage people to reach out to me, do the research. This is a very powerful possibility.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Allison. I
It's
found
a
that
pleasure.
absolutely fascinating. I hope the people who watched and are watching the replay also find this really fascinating. Definitely reach out to Allison. Even if you're not going to work with her directly, she is a font of information on this and can really kind of talk to you about it in a way that will help you understand what's going on. And you're welcome, Elaine. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Um, all right. So, guys, we are going to end this particular discussion. And in a couple of minutes, we are going to be live on Instagram on Allison's account. So, if you want to see us continue, come on over to Instagram and we'll be opening the live in a few minutes.
Yeah, see you in a couple
All
minutes.
right. Great. Everybody have a great day. Oh, thank you, Charlotte. I think it is going to be huge as well. Thanks for everybody who joined the live. And I also want to remind you that if you are a Pilates instructor, that today is the last day to register for my upcoming 12-week Pilates Teacher Mastermind course on teaching Pilates for osteoporosis and chronic back, neck, and shoulder pain. If you register today, you will get all kinds of awesome bonuses, including a private session with me, my renowned Pilates for back pain e-course, and you'll save $200. So head on over. I will actually put a link in the comments to this video if you would like to join us, because I would love to help you guys out. All right. Thank you so much, Allison. And we will see you all very soon on the Instagram Live. Bye.